Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the Chelmsford Public Schools website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will take place tonight in accordance with the Chelmsford School Committee Public Participation Guidelines. Anyone speaking tonight during the public input portion of the meeting has notified the superintendent's office of their desire to speak and has been provided with these guidelines. Upon request, written comments received no later than 12 p.m. on the day of this meeting will also be read and made a part of the record of the meeting during the second public input session. Any members of the press present? No. All right. Well, welcome to our meeting tonight. Our first order of business is to approve our minutes from January 17th.
I move that the committee approve the minutes of the regular school committee meeting of January 17th, 2023. Second.
Does anybody have any comments or corrections? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. All right, next up are our Chelmsford High School student representatives.
Hello, everyone. To start off, a few days ago, the McCarthy Middle School had their play, Matilda, and it was on the 3rd and 4th. I wasn't able to attend, but I heard it was a huge success. And tomorrow is a half day for students. And congratulations to the swim and dive team for winning MVCs.
So Choral Fest 2023 will take place Saturday, February 11th at the Chelmsford High School PAC. The CHS Crescendos a cappella group had a stellar performance at the New England Voices Fest, and the next stop for them is the ICHSA Northeast Region quarterfinals on February 12th at Galvin Middle School, alongside the Thursdays. And on February 15th, there will be a live webinar that gives an overview of the ways to reduce the cost of college for all who wish to attend.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any good news?
Yes, there's two pieces of good news tonight. We will be talking about the L review, but we just wanted to let you know that the Office of Language Acquisition from DESE has invited our L team to present at their State L Leadership Network Conference as a model district. So that was good news. And they also asked Victoria Carnival, she is one of the L teachers at Parker Middle School, to write an article for their newsletter, Nuestro Puente, which means our bridge, had to look that up, regarding just our collaborative support with our L programming. So they were just very impressed with what they saw. The other piece of good news is that our Fulbright T scholars are here. They're at UMass. There are 2 that are at Chelmsford High School. There's 21 total, but they're across the Merrimack Valley. I was actually just with them this afternoon working on one of their seminars, and they're just very excited to be here, and they're learning as much as they can and then giving up as much information as they have for our teachers to be able to just collaborate and be able to give our students a great experience. They'll actually be here, all 21 of them, on the 28th at the school committee meeting.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have any other good news they would like to share? Okay, do we have anybody that is here to speak publicly tonight?
We don't.
Okay, thank you. So I'll turn it over to you then.
We'll jump right into the new business. Yeah, thank you, everyone. It seems like we haven't seen each other in a little bit. But we have McCarthy Middle School here tonight to talk a little bit about some of the happenings at McCarthy. So I'll let you guys introduce yourself. And Linda will help with a little bit of a presentation. This continues with our spotlight on the schools and the departments. One of our meetings, we talk about what's happening in schools. And then another meeting, the departments come and present. And Kurt, we'll let you take it away.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. This is always a highlight of our year to be able to come and share out the good things happening at McCarthy. With me tonight is Kerry Calabrese, our assistant principal, as well as Moya Charig, one of our school counselors, who's primarily the grade 8 counselor this year, but also has a chunk of grade 5 as well. So in other words, Linda's going to pull up the slideshow.
I'm trying. Oh, hold on, let's get excited. There's something going on. All right, just give me a minute. We'll all be, because I have to just move it to the start.
Skip
Click
right
her
to the
over.
good part.
Kurt is always the same.
No, I don't want that display. Hold, please.
If I can jump in, we're going to highlight some of the work that our PBIS team has done this year. as well as kind of highlight some of the DEI initiatives that are going on at McCarthy this year. And just to bring us back, a goal of McCarthy's has always been and continues to be making sure students feel connected to someone or something at the school. We basically want them to have a sense of belonging. And we don't want that sense of belonging just to be within the classroom. We really want them to feel like they belong as part of the McCarthy community and even the larger Chelmsford community. And we do those through such initiatives as Project 300, which we're not highlighting tonight, but we did collect, I think, over 29,000 cans this year. So it was another successful drive. But we also, want students to be able to build and maintain meeting relationships, not only with peers, but with adults in the building. And we try to facilitate that through other opportunities outside of the classroom. So a lot of that is accomplished in some of our clubs and activities after school, where they get to kind of work with our staff in an environment outside the curriculum environment in the classroom. But not all students do the activities after school. So one of the things our PBIS committee, we committed to them last year, and I think we highlighted some of the fun events we did last year. But what we've done kind of this year is, in having more of those fun type of events on a monthly basis, we really tried to tie to our school-wide expectations. And I'm gonna, turn it over to Kerry, who's gonna talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. Yes, so as Curtis mentioned, last year we spent time bringing back events just to build reconnectedness with staff and students. And in planning over the summer, one of the facets to a PBIS framework in any school is to monitor behaviors and also create an incentive system to reward students who are always meeting and exceeding expectations. In other words, these are the kids that we are catching doing all the right things in all the right places through the course of their schedules on a day-to-day basis. So the team decided to wed the two ideas together. And typically in a PBIS framework, the incentive is a token or tangible sort of incentive. And over a period of time, students would collect enough tangibles, tokens, tickets, whatnot, to turn them into something that was of greater interest to them, whether it be some sort of item or something from, like bookstore or Chelmsford gear or something like that. So we decided to wed these two ideas together, and we are beyond excited about the success that we've had. So what we did was we went forward and scheduled school-wide activities that would be available to all staff, all student in large locations in the building. However, in order to be eligible, you have to be a student that is meeting your daily expectations inside and out of the classroom, which can be challenging at times. So we had planned out a year's worth of activities, and the key is to do something different in a different location just to keep the interest high, and so that it's not always an athletic event in the gymnasium. It's not always a performance on stage in the auditorium. A couple of the examples that we bring to you tonight is we set up a game show back in the fall, very similar to Minute to Win It. We had staff and students up on that stage participating, and it was a lot of fun. We next moved to Ultimate Volleyball, which was a standard, staff versus student game, and we had many exciting matches on the court. When we moved into December and holiday season, we took a break from more of that physical activity and wanted to create an event that was inclusive on a different level. And inclusive meaning there are a lot of different ways to celebrate different holidays during that stretch of December and January. So we had a holiday door decorating contest with the theme of globally being inclusive of how other parts of the world celebrate and what they do and what their traditions are. In January, we surprised the students and had a pop-up bingo game in the auditorium, which was a lot of fun. I think the staff may have gotten into it a little bit more than the students, but it was amazing to see how excited and jazzed up students got about something that is one of the oldest games, that one of the first games you learn how to play way back when. And then we're very excited. Our next event is actually a week from today. And we have a guest coming to McCarthy Middle School. His name is Corey Rich. He is also known as Corey the Dribbler. And he's a former professional basketball player. He was a member of the Harlem Globetrotters. He's played professional basketball in international leagues. He's been on the Legends team with some of big names that you're familiar with, the NBA, and he has affiliations with the Denver Nuggets and the Philadelphia 76ers. He also holds about 8 world records for his ball handling skills. We're excited to have him come to McCarthy and deliver his message. Right now, he's a motivational speaker, but he draws on his past basketball experience. And his story is very interesting. He's considered rather short, according to NBA standards. So his show is about being of strong character and persevering even when people tell you you can't, and to follow your dream. Because in basketball, you can't teach height. So his message to students is, well, if I can't be as tall as the other players on the team, I need to find something that I can do better than them. And then he goes into his whole story. So I'm very excited that the students are going to have the opportunity to experience his messaging and also take a look firsthand at his basketball skills, because he will perform those as well. And then throughout the year, we have other activities planned as well. We have our infamous McCarthy Cup coming up, which is a floor hockey tournament among homerooms. It's very competitive. And then we're planning a walkathon, and then we have an end of the year activity as well. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot that kids would be interested in. And our point, again, is to kind of hit all the different points of interest that would be, on the mind of any typical middle schooler. So that's where we are with that.
And just kind of jumping back in here a little bit, I've been in the district 27 years, and certainly we have become a much more diverse population in the town as a whole, in the school system as well. And we've been trying to really celebrate that diversity as best we can. So we've done a lot of work in that area. We're going to talk about a couple of things, especially. I am going to turn it back over to Carrie briefly, and she can tie in some of the work. Again, the PBIS committee has done. We are currently celebrating Black History Month, and she could talk about some of the work that's being done on that.
So we do know that a lot of staff have activities and things planned in order to celebrate Black History Month. But as a whole school, we wanted to provide other opportunities for all staff to have conversations and bring in teachable moments into their classroom, because the contributions of African Americans is so important to our history. One of the things that the PBIS team has put together is a list of history quiz games that all focus on Black History Month. For example, we released one to the entire staff to use at their will that has to do with all African American inventors. We released a second history quiz game where the theme is, civil rights and politics. A third game that we've released is, entertainment and athletics. So we're trying to hit all the categories in which contributions have been made, and bring it to classrooms in a fun, interactive way, because these are online quiz games, so students have a chance to kind of kibitz after they've answered, and you can see who's in the lead, and it's a little competitive as well. So it ties in with a lot of the messaging that we've been working throughout the year to put forth in our school. So something different that we're trying this year is to recognize Women's History Month, which is coming up in March. So the committee is looking to do something similar to take a look and gather resources that are age appropriate and grade level appropriate, so that staff members have these at their fingertips. So when they find a teachable moment in their classroom, it's there and it's ready to go. And also, on a different note, we are looking to really hit on that inclusion piece of the goal. We are hearing from students that there are times where they are experiencing, comments or they hear language that is more exclusive than inclusive. And those voices are being heard. And we are very grateful to have Mrs. Moya Charig, our 8th grade counselor, who has heard those voices and is starting an initiative to take some actionable steps forward.
Thank you, Kurt and Carrie, for having me tonight, and thank you, committee, for allowing me to come and speak about this. Over the past several months, I've had an increasing number of students come to me with concerns around language that is racist, microaggressions happening at the middle school, and anti-LGBTQIA statements that are being made either directly to individuals or as jokes that are being overheard in the hallways. In a most recent conversation with a student, she was very distressed at the microaggression she had experienced, and I was looking for a way to empower her to feel better about what she was experiencing and to help create change, because it feels like things are increasing and not necessarily getting better for these students. And so we decided that it would be great to just start with a conversation. And so I opened it up to all of the 8th grade students and staff to join me for a conversation last Thursday around these concerns. And I was so grateful to have 5 students who joined me, and 6 staff members, including myself, were there. And we opened it up to create a safe space and create some norms for our group. And students had the opportunity to just openly talk about what they had experienced. And the goal ultimately of this group is to empower students to help us as adults create a safer McCarthy. So they're the eyes and ears on the ground. They know when a student is up for discipline for their words or their actions, and they come back to class laughing about it. And so what are some other ways that we can have a positive impact in this area? So we are meeting again this Thursday. An email went out to students and staff today, inviting them to come back on Thursday. I'm hoping to have those students again. I'm hoping to have some more. We're going to make this a weekly conversation for empowerment, for community, for collaboration. I also spoke with some members of the 8th grade team today about after break creating spaces where we can have small group conversations with all students, addressing issues of racism, addressing issues of anti-LGBTQIA language, addressing issues of anti-female language that I'm hearing, and anti-disability. So it's a lot, it's a big problem to tackle, but this I feel like is a start. And we have to start somewhere. Thank you.
So, as we can see, we still have a lot of work to be done. These past couple of years, we've spent a lot of time as a staff looking at these issues. And certainly, post-pandemic, we have seen an uptick in behaviors that, we weren't really seeing before that time. So, we're going to continue to work, and I'm really appreciative of the work Moya has done and the other 2 counselors along. There is a plan to kind of roll this out possibly in grade 7 as well, and just kind of moving forward with that. Other things that have happened is we've had students that have emailed Carrie and I that want to make announcements in like almost educational announcements on a religious or a cultural celebration that's going on. So we've allowed students to come and make morning announcements regarding events that are important to them in their cultures. And we've continued to offer, I know we've celebrated this group here in past meetings, but McCarthy continues to have our after-school club called Stand Up McCarthy. And again, it's basically the middle school equivalent of a gay straight alliance, giving those students a safe place to come and be supported and surrounded by supportive allies. So that's the work that continues.
All right, does anybody have any questions or comments?
I just wanted to say thank you for doing the work. That's really hard work, and it requires constant attention and care, right? It's like something that you grow. So I just want to say I appreciate the work, and I appreciate everything you guys do at McCarthy, because I hear from a lot of parents, and they love your school. So thank you.
The other thing is that's been going on a lot in the middle school level, of course, now is the restructuring of the grade levels. And when you were talking about what's going on, it seemed to be focusing quite a bit on the 8th grade level. and what's going on there. And first of all, wonderful that you are addressing it and that you're having these discussion groups and giving people an opportunity to talk. I think that's wonderful. And when you do have the restructuring on the schools, maybe looking at, what you can do with 5, 6 versus, then going into 7th and 8th. 8th grade is a very tough year. It's a very huge transitional year. And so glad to see that you are addressing it, thinking going forward what we can do in terms of making it even more meaningful to students right from the beginning. And thank you for recognizing that, yes, we are a very different place from what happened 25 years ago in our community, and we are a reflection of what's changing in our community. Thank you.
I did have one quick question. The activities like that you had around bingo and, those happen during the school day, you said?
Yes,
Okay, I was just wondering,
we
because
look for an advantageous time
I,
in the schedule to do so.
oh, that's fantastic. And thank you to your staff for participating.
Yeah, I don't know if you could see in those pictures, one of the
Yeah.
activities in the Minnetonka was they had to wrap teachers into a mummy with toilet paper, so. Interesting.
Yeah, so, well, I think those are terrific activities. I'm glad that they're so well received and that both the teachers and the students were able to engage in those together, because I think it makes it that much more special.
Thank you.
Yeah, Moya, Kurt, and Carrie, thank you very much for presenting tonight.
Thank you. Nice job.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Take care. Thank you so much.
You need bingo advice from the senior center.
Got plans, huh, Jeff?
I would do.
Big plan.
Early bird and everything else.
Clever, Jeff. Read advantage.
Night.
Night.
Good night.
Night.
Okay, next up, we have a vote to approve the contract for the superintendent, Dr. Lang. And at this point, I'll turn it over to you guys to just kind of give us a very quick overview, and then we'll take a vote.
Yeah, do you want me to start?
You could start, go ahead.
So we should do an overview first and then kind of make a comment, you think?
No, go ahead and make your comments, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to make a comment about the superintendent. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody on the committee, the superintendent, and especially Maria, who we've become very close during the process of negotiating the contract. Jay's a tough negotiator, for all the public who doesn't know that. But I just wanted to say, I think Jay's been on as the superintendent for 8 years, and I've been on the school committee for 7. So I've actually been on the school committee almost the entire time he's been here. And I originally ran because I wanted full-day kindergarten, because silly me, I didn't know. And I got here and I thought, that's gonna be easy, right? We're gonna stick it in the Westlands and da-da-da-da. And then it shows, I meet Jay Lang and he's like, oh no, if you want to do full-day kindergarten, you have to do building projects. We're gonna need modulars. You're gonna have to do capital planning. You're gonna have to do all of this work. And the end result of all that work of the past 7 and 8 years is a real potential for a new school building. Jay's done a lot of great things in the past around COVID, around money management and all that stuff, which I think is obviously important and is reflected in this. And what we've come up with is a 6-year contract to kind of recognize not just the work he's done in the past, but more importantly, what we as a community have to face moving forward. So if we get this new school project, which by the way is a generational project. So there are school committees all the way back to the beginning that have worked on this to get to the point where, almost to the point we're gonna get a school building project. And we could affect the lives of thousands of children across multiple generations of Chelmsford kids by doing something like that. And it would probably be one of the largest projects in town history. So stability and experience really, really matter when you start getting to big things like that. And Chelmsford is not getting smaller. The population is not getting smaller, and there's just nothing but growth in the future. And I really look forward to the next 6 years with Dr. Lang.
Thank you.
I'm just going to add in a couple of comments. I think John has said some very important things about why the contract is for 6 years. It's about the future. You've proven already that you can certainly, you have the talent, the ability. You've brought us to a point where we can now, we have our fiscal house in order, and we're moving forward at a time when many are struggling. Those things are typically being anticipated. And we also need to thank the town for allowing us to have the budget that we do have so that we can continue these projects. But going on into the future, the town continues to change. We've got a big project coming on that will continue to change the face of what's going on. And the stability is really important, as is the experience that you bring to the table. And thus the reason why the contract that's being presented today for approval is here. I want to thank you personally for the way you dealt with us and for the entire committee in the way that we worked together to get to this point. It's truly appreciated. And yes, it was good to partner with John here on this committee. I got to know him too, and he's a tough negotiator as well. So it was really good. Thank you.
So thank you both for spearheading this. And at this point, I'll take a motion.
I move that the school committee approve a new contract of employment for Dr. Lang based on the specific terms previously discussed by the committee in executive session on or about January 9th, 2023, and presented and reviewed in executive session on February 7th, 2023.
Second.
At this point, is there any further discussion or questions? Then we'll take a roll call vote. Dennis?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Rhea?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
just,
Nicely done,
real
guys.
brief.
Absolutely.
I just want to take an opportunity quickly just to thank again Maria and John for working closely on the negotiations and the whole committee for obviously supporting me in the work I do. And as I've said before, even when we come to evaluation and things like that, I very much enjoy being here and I look forward to being here for the years to come. But I honestly am only as successful as the team that supports me here at central office, and Linda and Joanna are here, but we have a larger group at central office and even in the schools. So I very much appreciate your support and your vote of confidence and look forward to continuing working with you in the years to come.
Thank you. I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, I'm going to shift here. Oh, it's budget time. I'm going to shift.
Like
here.
Christmas, we get the presents.
I know, Joanna has a gift.
Get the presents under the table.
Here come the barn.
You need help?
No, I'm good. I can help it, it's not problem.
Oh, a little light reading.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Oh,
much.
just for me? Thank you.
Give you a contract and give us books.
Books and full-size waters. Nothing but the best. So as far as the budget document is concerned, and for those watching at home, we always give out the document itself at the meeting because things actually do change right up until the last second. And that's actually why it's a 3-hole punch document as opposed to a bound document, because I need to be able to slide things in and out depending on how things are going. But just want the public to know, so we will get this budget posted up first thing in the morning as part of the agenda pack. It'll be there for anyone to take a look at. We've been consistent and we've used the same format we previously used, and that has served us well over the last number of years. So when you come into the budget, we have our budget narrative that talks a little bit about Chelmsford and some of its spending, and I'll review that in the slideshow. We then talk a little bit about the fiscal '24 budget, and I'm going to highlight a couple of the new things that we have in the budget. And then we have our, what we call a summary level data, which is on page 10. And ultimately, when we convene again on February 28th, we're going to go page by page through the budget. And we start on page 11. And we actually answer questions. And as you're reading this, if you have any things you'd like further information on, or if something just jumps out to you that you'd like to learn a little bit more on, if you tell me ahead of time, I'm happy to write up a little narrative or just bring some notes to that meeting on the 28th. But we did also follow the format where there is a note section on the end of each page. So if I flag something even in my review that's like newsworthy to me, or something moves around in the budget, I often make a note. So if you read the little note section, sometimes that'll crosswalk up and answer a question you might be asking for. And then it closes out with the staff salary book, which really ties to the main budget document. And then you have a few appendices on student enrollment and our grant and revolving funds, and right down the line. So Within this budget, and I do want to, as we just go through a couple of slides, we always kind of take a look at our current fiscal '23. And I do think to John's mention earlier, we have been in very good financial shape now for a number of years. And a lot of districts actually in the Greater Merrimack Valley and even the eastern part of the state, which I'm more familiar with, are really getting hit hard this budget year. I think you're going to see '24 and '25 are going to be very difficult years for communities, particularly communities who are at levy capacity and really don't have a lot that they can add to support their programs. But just a quick statement on fiscal '23, we're in very good shape as we reported at the second quarter. We're working on budget projections now to figure out if we have some additional funds this year that we can reallocate come March for one-time spending, which we've done historically, so we're still on track for that. We had a big benefit where all of our collective bargaining agreements, with the exception of the custodians, are settled. So our teachers, our administrators, our paras, so we were able to incorporate all those figures into the budget planning, so that's very significant. We have one bargaining unit who has a contract that expires on June 30th, so we're going to begin negotiations with that group in March, and I've put aside funding in the line item for future COLA raises within the budget, and that's something that we've historically done, so that when we get to the actual negotiations, we can fund it and we can implement the contract. But in the scheme of things, that's a smaller group, so I think that's manageable, and hopefully we can address that in relatively short order this winter. But fiscal '23 looks very good. The fiscal '24 outlook, before we get into that, we're actually going to just take a look at a couple of the historical pieces that we always look to every year. And one of the ways that school districts across the state can compare themselves is how much they actually spend on educating the students in their communities. Everyone is required to spend what they call net school spending or minimum net school aid. And we certainly do that. And I think across the state, there's a little over 10 communities that spend less than that amount. So communities typically benchmark how much over net school spending they spend to kind of figure out where they fall. And I know I've talked previously when we had the tri-board meeting, we are kind of received 10 comparable districts in the state that are most comparable to us based on our enrollment, our size, our demographic, our number of students who receive like free and reduced lunch, who are English language learners, who are on special education IEPs and receiving special ed services. So these are the 10 districts that are most comparable to us. And we have to look at the last year where the data was audited for all the districts. So that's fiscal '21. So the fiscal '21 data ended on June 30th. And you'll see for spending purposes, we're right about in the middle of the pack. We're a little bit higher than the state average of 25.9. And of our comparable communities, actually middle of the pack, maybe top 2/3 of the spending. And that's been pretty consistent for us. So that means we're spending 33.7% higher than what that minimum aid number is. And you do have to say, when it comes to obviously fiscal '21, but even '23 and '24, the town really supports education, and the town really supports our budgeting. We do not receive a significant amount of money from Chapter 70 state aid. We're a minimum aid district, which means we receive about $30 per student in aid. And if you have 5,000 students, that's about $150,000 that's coming from the state. And then the rest is actually borne on the tax levy in the tax community. We obviously work closely with Paul Cohen, the town manager, around these requests and whatnot, so that we're on the same page eventually when we get there with regard to what the request is. But we spend, again, comparably with our other communities. One of the other benchmarks that we've kind of taken a look at over time, and this is actually trending in the right direction, our class size has actually decreased. And in this particular chart, you kind of want to be near the top because that means you have lower class sizes. And again, we're right about in the middle, but we actually have been moving in the right direction. So that is a good indication. This is an area where we are still low. However, I do want to point out that this is fiscal '21 data, and we are starting to make some strides in our recent contracts that we negotiated. We've added some top steps to our teacher's contract. We've dropped our first step. So we are starting to see some compression and some numbers moving. But the data doesn't lie. As of fiscal '21, at the end of that particular year, we certainly are near the bottom of our comparable districts with regard to average teacher salary. And that is, again, something that the committee has worked on. With regard to how much we spend per pupil in the district, So this is an accumulation of all spending for all of our students, regular ed, special education, L students. Again, we're right in the middle. We're right in the middle of the pack from our comparable districts, which to me says, we're not certainly spending too much. And if community members have questions or whatnot, we really are kind of spending right in the middle. Obviously, we'd like to keep kind of trying to close that gap between where we are and where the average state spending is. I do think we're obviously making some strides on that, and we're moving positively in the right direction. So that's my big takeaway when it comes to funding. As I mentioned earlier in this budget document, and again, this aligns with the recommendation that Town Manager Cohen put out to the Select Board last Monday. But this is actually a $3.2 million increase for us over our current budget. So our current budget for fiscal '23, which ends on June 30th, 2030, is $67.5 million. We needed $3.2 million to provide basically a level service budget. So that is providing for all of the staff and services that we're currently paying in our current budget, and a couple of small tweaks. But even some of the small tweaks are really some economies that we found with a position that may be open through retirement and not filling it and having to reallocate that position to something else within the budget. But that's a pretty significant number if you think about it again. If about $150,000 is coming from the state and the community is supporting another $3 million, the town really does support us. So, I very much appreciate them, and we always thank them when we go to town meeting. At the very bottom, so we have to put some assumptions into the budget when we're building it. And again, I mentioned that we do have contracts in place for all but the custodians, which is very good for budgeting purposes. We're dealing with real numbers, not speculation. We always include our step and lane changes. So if someone is currently on step 3, we assume next year they're going to be on step 4. That's actually built right into the staff salary book, and the numbers in the back of the book reflect that and then feed up to the front of the book. And lane changes, we always survey our staff to figure out, does someone have a master's degree and they're in a grad program and they're going to be getting a CAGS, or are they working towards a doctorate? If they tell us ahead of time, we can obviously budget wisely for that. So those figures are included in the budget. What you'll see in the third little bullet is we do anticipate, obviously, a savings anytime we have a retirement. Now, I think another significant thing about Chelmsford is that we actually don't have a lot of retirements. I think we have about 9 or, is it 9 or 10? It's now 7. So I know it was close, but we have 7 retirements this year. But I think only maybe 2 of them are teachers. We have a nurse, we have a psychologist, so, we have a number of folks retiring. But people really do, they work hard, they're appreciated, and they stay. And so we have some very good longevity in the system teachers-wise. But when I looked to put the budget together last year, I think our master's level step 3 is what we typically budget to, and that's been a pretty good number for us, was about 63,000. So you'll see based on like our last negotiations, how we added a step and dropped a step, that's actually moved up to 69,000. So that's a pretty big increase just in a year's time, and that's why over time you're also going to start to see the average salaries start to come together. We have made some progress on that. And again, the last little bullet, we do have funds set aside for that last contract that we need to negotiate. So I mentioned to you within the budget, we have a couple of small tweaks. And again, I mentioned this previously, I don't have a slide on this. One of the biggest budget drivers for this year for us is special education tuition and out-of-district special ed costs. So it's not actually costs of any students who are attending Chelmsford Public Schools, but we have a number of students who attend out-of-district placements because we don't provide the program of service that student really needs in district. And obviously, we always have some students that go out-of-district. We receive a credit a year later for a portion of their tuitions through circuit breaker. However, OSD, the Operational Services Division of the state, which is under the Administration and Finance Office, they approve the rates that these out-of-school schools can actually charge each year. And they typically approve approximately 2 to 3% as a rate increase, which kind of keeps up with inflation in general terms each year. This past fall, they approved a 14% rate increase for these out-of-district schools, which is unheard of. I've never in my career seen a rate increase like that. And so for us, I mean, that's over $1 million alone in just rate increases for students who are already in a particular program. So this isn't even new students that we're putting into out-of-districts. It's just we're going to be spending over $1 million more to educate the students we currently have in out-of-district placements next year than we're paying this year. And so this has had a ripple effect through school systems, across the state. There is significant concern among superintendents. I know school committees, MASS, MASC, both have kind of position papers on this. With the transition in leadership with the governor's office, everyone is trying to kind of make their case for what this is actually doing budget-wise in communities. And that's why I mentioned earlier, a lot of communities are struggling with this. We obviously, working with the town, were able to incorporate that extra funding so that we're not in a situation where we're looking at any kind of budget reductions or significant changes we have to make. I'm very thankful for that. But there are a lot of communities that don't have that cooperation or even ability to pay. So that has been significant.
Could I actually make a comment? I think that one of the things that we've done well over the years is to try and increase our programming within our schools, so that way we could keep students in district, which is always preferable, to keep kids in their community, among their peers and, in their community schools. So I think I think we've planned well for that in terms of having that programming. The other thing too is, I do want to make sure that people understand that, we're very thoughtful in sending kids out of district. And when we do send kids out of district, it's because it's what they really need. It's not, it's not an easy decision. It's certainly not easy for the families or the schools, but it is what is in the best interest of the student. And so, we do that, right? We have to. And I did a little research on OSD, and I realized that from 2011 to 2022, their average increase was only 1.8% a year. So I think what's happening is they're trying to make up for, falling behind. But unfortunately, doing it all in 1 year was not a great decision.
Right.
So, but I just want to make sure that people understand that, special education is expensive but necessary. And, I think we do a good job.
Right. No, I think we do actually a very good job of managing it. And I certainly wasn't trying to suggest that we were sending more kids out of district.
No, not at all.
It was just that the same students who are out of district
Right.
this year are just going to cost us that much more
Absolutely.
next year. But to your point, and this first bullet actually kind of addresses that, over the last 5 to 6 years, we actually have built a significant amount of in-district programming, because I think we all agree that if we have the cohort of students who would better be served in Chelmsford, in one of our buildings, we would like to build out that program.
Right.
It's better for the family, it's better for the student. Honestly, it's better for the community to have kids stay within their community, and everyone has supported that, so that has been excellent. So this is one area where we're actually going to continue to expand. So last year, we added a language-based program at Parker Middle School, was the middle school that housed it, and it was for incoming fifth grade students who had a language-based disability and would require some specialized instruction. That, and again, when Amy from Special Ed comes in to talk, that has been hugely successful. So we have a language-based teacher who is actually part of a team teacher with the math and science and social studies and English teacher, supporting a specific group of students who came up from our elementary schools who required this programming. So when we recommended this last year, because this is really one of the last programs that we don't offer in district, we have to grow the program, or it really won't be successful. This isn't something that we can water down and have, one teacher supporting 2 grade levels of students. The teacher needs to be in the classroom with the students, being able to pull out when necessary, but really kind of push in for the extra services to make sure that the students are really getting what they need. So we need that teacher to stay with the 5th grade, because we have another cadre of kids that are moving up from elementary school next year. But we need to now take care of the kids who have been well supported this year in 5th grade as they move to 6th. So we need to add an additional teacher for that language-based program in 6th grade. And then a year from now, I'm going to be coming back to add one for 7th and a year after for 8th. But, within the program, we're able to support the rest of the needs when it comes to curriculum materials and para support and things like that. But we do need to add another teacher. But that has been wildly successful in this first year of implementation. So, and again, we'll report more on that when special ed comes in. But that particular program has really gone very well at the school. Parents I've spoken with, teaching staff I've spoken with. I have not spoken with the kids, but the staff and the parents are really appreciative of that program.
Currently, how many students are in the fifth grade?
Approximately, in that program?
In the fifth grade?
Approximately 9.
9. So next year probably be at 9, so you still.
It really just depends on the
Yeah.
profile, but ballpark, yeah. I would
Those
say
still,
8 to 9.
those are kids that could go out of district if their needs were.
Yeah,
being met.
potentially. It's really like middle school when things kind of, kind of hit a wall. So yes, so those students obviously be supported all the way up. And then there'll be another number of students who are being identified in fourth grade who would benefit from that program. So they'll now move into fifth grade. Yeah.
Will it still be a park? Well, it would be park.
It'll be,
park-
which has
yeah,
actually kind of
yeah.
worked out really well for us. So it'll be a Parker for another year. And then we'll have to add at McCarthy the following year. Did you have a question?
Well, we have this whole study being done,
Right.
on the special ed system in our school, what the curriculum and so on, what we're providing our services. Does this budget already take that into consideration, or how does it, no? Okay.
So this, if you want to think about this budget as like our base budget, which everything will kind of feed off of. So this budget has to sustain all of our known increases for next year and the years after. We're still kind of finalizing the strategic plan, bless you. And even the special ed opportunities review, we won't receive some of those recommendations until like the March and April timeframe. So we have set aside ESSER funds in '24 and '25 to kind of front load some of the recommendations that DM Group makes for us for that. And then if you remember, we also have some money that's, kind of set aside in the current year budget because we pre-funded tuitions. So that's a strategy we've used to kind of float a little bit of money from year to year to fill some of those gaps that are necessary. You'll likely receive that again this year. So when we have the one-time recommendation, we'll likely recommend putting a certain amount of money aside for the prepaid tuitions, which then gives us a little bit of extra flexibility in the fiscal '24 budget so that we can add some of those things that come out of the study. So between those two facets, that's how we're going to fund the strategic plan and the special ed opportunities review.
Okay.
So this is really our base, which again, I think is good. The next couple of minor tweaks is in the district, we have a full-time nurse, an RN, in every school. And then, actually, the high school has 2. But at Parker, McCarthy, and the high school, they also have an LPN nurse in the office, and they're only .7, so they don't work a full day. As all of the other demands on the schools have gone up, the nursing demand has also gone up in the buildings. So a request from Peggy Gump, who's our nurse coordinator, and the 3 LPNs, they're willing and able and really would like to work full-time. So I've built in for them to go from .7 to 1.0. So it's a relatively small amount of money. It has no effect on benefits or anything like that because they're already benefit eligible because they're over half-time. So it's really a small amount of money that we get a big bang from. So that has been included in the program. And then lastly, the only other kind of position shift or add is, and you're all very familiar with the program, the ASD program at the Byam School. Hugely successful, big numbers of students that are very well supported in that program. But the numbers that are actually coming up from CHIPS right now are just requiring us to add additional ASD classrooms. And Byam already has 3, and to be honest with you, having 3 is already kind of maxing them out. We need to develop a second option or a second strand for some of those classrooms. So Harrington Elementary School is one of the schools that doesn't have any specialized programming. Center Elementary School houses the life skills program for the district. And then another program we added a few years back was Strive at South Row. So they're well supported with that program and really do an excellent job over there. But we're going to need to add a couple of classrooms at Harrington. And then both Byam and Harrington will serve students on the autism spectrum. We're in the process right now of taking a look at the numbers of students and kind of where they're at, how many are coming up, because we want to be as least disruptive as possible. Obviously, if a student's moving from fourth grade to fifth grade, it's a good time to consolidate some rooms. But I see one of the classrooms at Byam being shifted over to be a classroom at Harrington. And then one of the classrooms at CHIPS or staff shifting up because there's a big number of kids that are going up to kindergarten and will not be going obviously to CHIPS anymore. So we'll be able to maneuver the 2 teaching staff and the support staff of the room because they're already there supporting the kids now. But what we are going to need is some extra BCBA support at Harrington. So Harrington currently has a half-time BCBA, but we're going to need to move that position add another half so that they can really support the ASD program and still support the rest of the Harrington School. So that is also included as an add in the budget, moving that position from half-time to full. Again, it has no impact on benefits because it's already an over half-time position. And I think that will obviously be well received by Harrington, but also be very good support for that program as we start to develop a ASD strand at Harrington. It'll also take a little bit of the burden off of the buy-in kind of schedule-wise and even staffing-wise, because it's a very staff-intensive program. And even when it comes to like scheduling staff and absences and things like that, it is a lot to put on one particular school. So now we'll be able to actually kind of share that load a little bit. And then these aren't increases, but I just wanted to kind of point out to you, the budget just maintains the current rates that we're paying for all of our substitute staff. So day-to-day subs, long-term subs, nurses, anything along those lines. We're just maintaining our rate structure. We'd increased it last year, and it's been very well received. We still, like every district, are just having a hard time finding the temporary staff. So that's something that we work on. And then lastly, we actually cycle through this in fiscal '23 completely through the one-on-one initiative. And so all of our students now, grades 5 to 12, have their own laptop provided by the district. And we use school choice funds to be able to pay for that. So that actually is not a cost that's borne on the local budget. We do that more out of a grant-type fund. So next year, the incoming fifth graders at Parker will get a device. The incoming ninth graders at the high school will get a device. And we're in a regular cycle. So we're really happy that we're able to kind of get through that project. So that is the overview for tonight. Next steps would be obviously to read through the document, to flag any kind of questions or concerns or things you'd like more information on. We'll end up posting this budget document to the website in the morning, so if the public would like to see it, they certainly can. We email a copy of this budget or the link to the budget and a notice to all of the town meeting reps, because they're invited to come to the budget hearing if they like. I have randomly had a couple of call and ask me questions or just meet with me individually, which is totally fine. If people have questions about that, I'm always happy to do that. And then when we meet on the 28th, the primary focus of that meeting will actually be to go page by page and ask questions and, get information if you have any, and go through our budget process. And again, to Maria, this is really the local budget piece of it. We will have the ESSER and we'll have some flexibility to pay for some of the recommendations that come out of Special Ed Opportunities Review through the grant funds. And on that note too, I'm not overly concerned because the grant funds still have a couple of years to be spent. So we can add something and kind of tailor it down. We won't have like a cliff where we fund it for 1 year and then it's gone the next year. But we'll actually be able to really kind of phase it in.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions or comments at this time? Yes.
Homework.
What's that?
Homework.
Find the letter out.
I at least kept the format the same, so you won't have to make any adjustments. But Joanne and the business office staff were wonderful in helping to put all the numbers and all the documentation together, so thank you. And, yeah, it's kind of exciting to be in budget season. I do like this time of year. Sorry, daughter.
So weird.
Yes.
Oh, on the 28th.
Yes.
These are.
Oh,
And
yes.
also, it's about and what people can do.
So when we do reconvene again on the 28th, we'll go through page by page. It is open to the public.
Right.
If anyone wanted to come and listen, they're welcome to. If anyone would like to ask a question, what we traditionally have done that night is allow people to come up kind of like page by page if they had a question or concern. It's awkward to have someone come up just at the beginning of the meeting and, because there's like 35 pages of the budget, ask something, and then it's like out of context by the time we get to it. So if the committee is okay with that, we probably follow a similar suit. So anyone could just come up before on a page, ask a question. But that is a good opportunity to, and if you want to come, you're welcome, but even if you just want to kind of watch it at home, it's taped, it'll be noticed, and that'll take place on Tuesday, the 28th.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on with the agenda, the fourth item for you this evening is a report in your packet on the, Joanna had worked with John Souza on the turf field revolving fund. This came over, and I just put it on there because it kind of comes up as a question every year. But we actually have 2 years left on the principal and interest payment on the turf fields at McCarthy and the high school. So we'll make a premium payment this spring, and then in fiscal '24, we'll make the last payment. So that's very good. I always kind of lose track of where the bond was, but we know we have 2 years left, and then what will end up happening is, after that, the turf still actually has a good amount of life in it. It's well-maintained, it's wearing well. Having a couple of years of COVID, as much as it hurt the revenue coming in, not getting a lot of action on it extended the life. So, for maybe the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, when we're not paying the principal and interest, that money will just accumulate in the turf field revolving fund. And then when we are ready to put a new turf in, we can access that fund to either pay for all or part of it. We may have to go out and bond again to pay for a piece of it, but it'll be a good offset. So I just wanted to kind of flag for you because I do know that comes up from time to time, but we only have 2 years left, which is good.
Now, do you know if the fields are wearing at the same rate, or do you think? Yeah.
I don't, off the top of my head. I will tell you, just like from the look, I honestly think McCarthy is wearing better than the high school. But McCarthy actually does get probably more public playability than the high school. But both are, again, like well-maintained. We have a company that comes out each season multiple times. They do this thing where they kind of, they have like a beater almost that like beats up the little rubber pellets, cleans it all out, puts it down again, and that definitely is extending the life. They have an impact test every year that they have to come out and do on the turf to make sure that it still has like the cushioning for concussions and things along those lines. So we're not in any jeopardy at all of not passing those. But my personal opinion, I think McCarthy's wearing a little bit better than the high school, but that's not scientific. That's just my, and I'm not running around on it either. That's just me visually looking at it for you.
Somebody have questions? Okay, thank you.
Great. And then I'll actually turn it over to Joanna for a couple of budget transfers.
Thank you. I have 2 budget transfers before you tonight, and this is for the fiscal 2023 budget. We're back in this year now. The first one is for $1,287. This kind of goes across the different DESI function codes, from the health ed supply account over to the Parker PE instructional equipment account. Katie would like to purchase a little bit more fitness equipment in the new fitness center at Parker Middle School. I'll go on to the second one and then
Please.
Ask questions. The second one is requesting a budget transfer of $110,000 for a new network video recorder. This is used in the school security system with all the cameras. And this is taking it from these like 7 instructional technology accounts over to the school security account. Take any questions and then can discuss and take your vote.
Just on the Parker thing, what kind of equipment and where is the instructional, the fitness center at Parker?
I think it's in the old,
The modulars.
yeah, the modular. They took out, there used to be just some kind of donated treadmills, that kind of thing. And within Katie's existing budget, she's been buying some equipment. This little bit is for some kettlebells and things like that. And then she is going to, the superintendent's going to bring forth a broader plan to make it even nicer, and then also a plan for the McCarthy School as well.
So this is students using the
Yeah,
kettlebell?
yes, it's for, for in their PE class. Yep.
The same type of thing exists at McCarthy?
Not yet.
That's the next
That's the,
work.
yep.
Does anybody have any other questions? Then I'll take a motion, please.
I move that the school committee approve the FY 2023 local operating budget transfers for the Chelmsford Public Schools as presented.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All right, we'll take a vote.
Aye.
Dennis?
Couldn't remember my name, could
Yeah.
you?
Jeff?
Aye.
John? Aye. Maria?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you.
Wow.
What happened?
I forget.
What happened?
Well, actually, we'll stay with Joanna for the CPS, the Internal Control Manual for Federal Grants. I want to provide a little background about that and then recommendations.
The district is required to have this manual because we receive federal grants. And we brought this to the committee in October of 2017, the first manual. And then this manual is being updated for a couple reasons. As part of Mass General Law, mostly Chapter 30B, dollar thresholds change every now. Actually, as part of the ESSER grants, we had to show them this manual, and they asked that we include language if the federal grants were to fund capital projects or construction projects. And when we did the manual back in 2017, we really referenced mostly like the Chapter 30B type projects and not, it's actually Chapter 149 and Chapter 39M or something, So those are the main reasons why it's being updated. And this is more procedures, processes, it's not really policies. So not really asking you to vote on it or accept it like another policy. It's really just a report of progress to let you know why we have the manual, when we present it for audits and that. And then we also just share, we have to follow all these procurement guidelines in everything we do with purchase orders and quotes and whether it's grant funded or not. The procurement, it doesn't really matter where it's being funded from. You still have to follow your procurement guidelines. So the updates are in red when you look at the 40-some pages.
So nothing, this is in contrary to our policies, right?
No.
'Cause I know we've gone through those recently,
Right.
so, okay.
Right.
Like all the dollar amounts and all that, whatever.
Correct. And they, the thresholds went up, and we've talked about that before with like even Chapter 30B, and then we just talked about it a couple meetings ago, where for school departments, different than even towns are, so for quotes in that, you can get 3 quotes for items between $10,000 and $100,000, where before it used to be between $10,000 and $50,000. So most of the thresholds went up.
This is more, I think I mentioned earlier, it's not a school committee policy. So you're not voting to actually like set a policy. We're just required to have certain like business documents or business regulations in the office. So you're basically voting to accept that you've received the report and then place it on file as a report of progress. That just shows, to the auditors, and there's a paper trail that like we've showed the manual to you. And then that's the manual that Joanna is ultimately held to as she's doing her work. So that would be the suggested motion.
So before we take a vote on accepting this as a report of progress, is there any other questions or thoughts? Yep.
So now that you've said this, there's no quiz, there's no tests. Because if anybody has seen this document, it is huge. It is huge.
And thank you for.
Thank
all
you
your
for
work.
doing this work, because this was way past me, so.
This particular policy, guidance here that we have, is this also what would apply if we did have a project for a building?
Even if it wasn't funded from a federal grant, which it wouldn't be a building, well, it's kind of a separate kind of MSBA funding, we'll have to follow Chapter 149, which is construction, and then there's another one for design services. So yes,
Okay, thank you.
and we'll be, that's when we're going to get into bidding and all that good stuff.
Right.
So,
I really enjoyed reading about the Davis-Bacon Act, so thank you.
oh, yeah.
It's a good one.
It was good. It was really good. I learned a lot. But, just to reiterate what John was saying, thank you very much. It's clear that this took a lot of work to update this. So,
Thank you. The MASBO, the Business Manager Professional Development Group, does help business managers with this type of things. They put out a template so that you can kind of gain ideas. And we didn't take every word from the template because every word wouldn't apply to everything that happens in Chelmsford. So it wasn't by myself dreaming this stuff up. I was looking at that, listening to the auditors. My team helped me to say, because we want it to be a usable document too, and not, to the average person trying to procure something and not make it too cumbersome. But thank you.
Great, thank you. So at this point, I'll take a motion to accept this as a report of progress.
I move that the committee vote to acknowledge the receipt of this updated report in progress of the manual of the CPS Internal Control Manual for Federal Grants.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you. Next up, I'll actually ask Linda to speak to. We just completed a successful review of our English Language Learner Program, and I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So in the same vein of all the other reviews that are happening, we have a special education review, not to be confused with the one that DM Group is doing. We were in the middle of an L review for our English language programming here in the district. They just finished up their site visit in January and were able to tour the different schools. Prior to that, what we have to do is provide a self-assessment. Through those, they were looking at actually 12 elements this time. So we provided all the evidence, then we did the verification of those pieces of evidence. If they had additional questions, they reached out to us. I think they only reached out for one of the different elements for some more evidence behind it, and then had a chance to tour the schools. And in good news, which kind of goes along with the good news that happened earlier today, is that we are in complete compliance for the program. There's no corrective actions for that program. And as I said earlier today, we're going to be a model district for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So a lot of work goes into these reviews, getting the documents from the teachers, from business office, from any office that's out there. Kelly Rogers was the one that spearheaded this whole piece and then also set up their visit. And at the same time, we were having a special ed review from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So there was a lot of action happening in January, so we're just really pleased with these results. There's a lot of work that goes into our L programming to make sure that we are in compliance with everything. So, good news.
Very good. Congratulations. That's good news.
Fantastic.
There's a lot of work that goes into preparing for these audits as well.
A lot, so a lot of the work comes in that whole self-assessment piece. So you are looking at the requirements, making sure that we are meeting those requirements, finding the documents, and actually presenting it in a way that the department can understand, right? So it's hard to look at somebody else's work, similar to that big document that you just looked at before. Not everything always fits for every district. So the department has a lot of work to try and understand what it is that we are providing for them. But, really, I have to tell you, Kelly's on top of these things. Kelly Rogers, who's in charge of the L programming, and just kind of like a dog with a bone with it. She will make sure, well, we're missing this, and we need this, where is this? So it's not as if we go through these reviews and then we say, oh, we probably should be doing this. It's already being done. I never have to really worry about these type of reviews. But it's an incredible amount of work to get them the details. We just did all of our title grants, so again, going through all those tabs, here's the information you need. And then they're pretty good about reaching out and asking for more information, rather than just giving a corrective action. And in the middle of some of the stuff too is some of it involves the teacher's work, right? So certifications have to be in order. So you have to give people time to make sure that everything is, kind of T's are crossed, I's are dotted. But it was a very good review, but it is a lot of work.
So thank you to Kelly Rogers and Amy Reese for preparing all of the necessary documentation, and that's really great news about our L program. Yes, Maria?
I'd like to it's great, absolutely great. And it says, our strong recommendation to consider recruiting additional staff members for your ELE program. Now, is there a particular level at which they say, okay, now you need to get additional staff, period? We have had some growth in the EL population. It's a very transitory group of students and families in many ways in the community. But at what point do we need to start thinking, we need more staff. And the other thing is that I wonder if some of this, because I know at the state level, there had been talk about, more money for special ed, when you have greater special ed programs, when you have a greater number of EL students. And this recommendation from the state itself would seem to say, you're getting to the point where you need some more people, and so maybe more money coming.
Yeah, so they don't give a ratio, so if you were looking for, you have to have, 10 to 1. There's no ratio for that, it's just looking at your programming and where, like you said, where are they located? Is one school more top-heavy, is one level more top-heavy? So typically, the L teachers will actually, if somebody has like lower numbers, they'll actually go to another school and start supporting those students. So you just have to look at what's our threshold of we're pulling a teacher too many times and then the students at their school wouldn't receive services. So right now, I would say that we're able to, take care of all the students we have. We are right at that bubble and we're just gonna have to keep monitoring that as we go along.
I read that too. In addition to that, like Linda said, there are no actual numbers to kind of fall back on. But I read that also to be encouraging districts to really try to develop and foster interest in teacher licensure around L, because there are not a lot of L teachers when you post a position. Similar to special ed, sometimes it's very difficult to find particular special education teachers. So, we have been fortunate where a lot of our, say, elementary teachers might be dual certified. They might have a general license and they may have a special ed license. Again, I read it to kind of have districts consider supporting staff to have a general ed license and have an L license. Just to kind of have that interest in that so that you can be duly certified. And a lot of it is just, it's the same, the same type of activities would be useful for L students as with regular ed students. So I also just read into that. It's very difficult finding L certified staff.
So you are thinking about it and you're considering it for the future, that's great.
Yeah, no, it's definitely on the radar.
It's wonderful, but this is congratulations to Kelly and the staff. They're an incredible group of people. If you get a chance to meet the teachers who work in the EL program, they are so incredible.
Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? All right, great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You had one of the next one, Donna.
Oh, yes, thank you. So one of the things that we had talked about was setting up a time in March to have an additional meeting, a workshop, so that we could kind of get our legislative agenda together in preparation for two things: to invite our representatives to one of our meetings to discuss with them some of our concerns, that we need their support in particular, Chapter 70 monies and things like that, as well as other issues as well. But we thought it would be helpful if we got together and kind of talked about it and what it is that we wanted to prioritize. And then we also have Day on the Hill at the beginning of May. So is there a time in March that would be best? Do you want to do it on one of our off Tuesdays? Would you like to come in early on a meeting day? Or is there something that would work best for people?
Tuesdays are always good for me, they're always blocked off.
Okay.
For meetings. So whatever daytime.
All right. So why don't we do it after is it March 7th is our,
The 21st.
27th, yeah. What about the 14th?
March 4th.
Would that work for people? We're going to be at the selectmen's meeting, I believe, on the
Night before.
13th.
Right.
That'll be pretty quick, and then we'll be on the 14th.
Yeah, I have jury duty that day. I don't know that, I'll be honest with you, I've always wanted to get started. I've never gotten selected, but
I think it'll be
assuming,
done by 5.
It's actually
I
really.
would hope. But
Is
yes.
5 o'clock,
it's-
5, 6,
works.
what works best for people?
Sequestered.
Sequestered, I know, that would be like,
For 6 years. That would be good.
what time did you say?
That's, we're working on that.
Oh, okay.
6 o'clock or 6, 5, which would people prefer? 6, okay. All right, 6 o'clock on the 14th.
Okay. And we'll just post that as a workshop.
We gotta
general
check them
meeting.
too, check their availability. Right?
who's-
Is it just for us to be?
Just for us,
Just for
Okay,
yes,
all right,
yeah.
right. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay. John, the awaited report on the McCarthy Middle School tennis redesign refurbishment.
There it is.
Doozy, it's in the packet, so as you recall, there was a group put together last, into the spring, heading into the summertime, to take a look at some possible options for the redesign, redevelopment of the McCarthy School, the tennis court area that abuts the police department and also the skate park over there. John and Jeff were members of the committee. We had some community representatives as well, some school folks participated, just to really kind of start from scratch. And so that report just kind of summarizes the meetings, who was on the different committees. I think there was general consensus around a multi-use for the site, and that was actually a plan, a capital plan for fiscal '25. So we're on track as far as like the capital plan pipeline. We had the McCarthy School renovation in '25. Again, we didn't know if it was just gonna be tennis courts or if it was gonna be other things. But what you'll likely see, and I do apologize for taking so long to get the report, but we do have the report to kind of work off of. When we take a look at our one-time funding in the springtime, one of the recommendations that I'll likely make is to put aside a little bit of money for like a landscape architect to actually help us on that site. And we even have a couple of projects on the main high school site that we're looking at. Put together some schematics, just take a look at like some overlays of the area itself and start to maybe tie a little bit of a budget out so that we know when we get to capital for '25, what we might be asking for to work with that particular site. So that'll be forthcoming in March, but I at least wanted to get the report written for you and have that document to be able to work from. So you do have that in your packet tonight.
So nothing would have to be done for like this town meeting, right? No, just.
Oh, no, nothing's done in this April. So the earliest it would go on is the capital planning, like next fall. So it's in the pipeline for '25. So then if we really have a good idea by the end of the summer of like what a budget would be and like what a concept would be, we'd be in good shape. We'd go to the capital planning committee, we'd have to prioritize it. And then ideally it would get funded in April of '24, right? For a potential project like that summer or that fall, depending on timing of things. But that would be the timeline.
What were some of the mixed uses that you?
I think the big one was, people would like to see recreational space. There was some consciousness to the fact that if it's on school property, it's really not accessible to the public during the school day. So, the school would want to use it for phys ed classes and recreational time and recess and before and after school programs, things like that. So we definitely want something that's conducive to the middle school population. And now we can actually be thinking kind of more 7th and 8th grade than anything. But I mean, the concepts that came up were obviously some tennis courts. Pickleball was another topic that came up. There was discussion about, could you overlay pickleball courts on tennis ball courts to have it be more use. Basketball courts, there aren't a lot of outdoor basketball courts in town. Obviously, that'll have to play in with the new tennis courts and basketball court and actually floor hockey thing at the high school that'll take place like later on this summer. There was discussion around like, say, a hitting wall for tennis, if you were going to put that up on one end. There was discussion also about like a lacrosse ball wall, but we also did talk about that's probably not the best site for it because you'd have people hitting the soft tennis balls and they're getting hit with the hard lacrosse ball. But there is, I think the other thing that kind of came up for me is there's an interest in general to maybe work with the town to look at like a larger recreational plan for not only McCarthy, but like what is the recreational plan for the town? Because we've got a lot of facilities that really have some great use, but they maybe could be redeveloped or used differently. And I don't know that there's like a master plan for parks and recreation within the town. So that also kind of came out of just some of the discussions. I don't know that that's necessarily like the purpose of this particular group, because this group is really looking more at McCarthy. But I think there does need to be a broader discussion about that. I'm curious to see where it may go. But again, I defer to you folks because you were on the group with me too.
Yeah, no, I think and again, everybody has their own motivation. Some people were really into the tennis court idea, they just wanted to put new tennis courts. I think for a lot of us, though, we thought, we have a tendency, and all towns have a tendency, they get a big space and we're just gonna put something in it. And we didn't wanna just go forward and do that. So we wanted to be a little more thoughtful, and open space projects, which I thought would be much more common, are actually pretty rare. We don't really run into them very often. So one of the discussions that we had was open space. So we want to give the police more parking. And we thought maybe we could have a path with a gate that, a controlled access gate that could go to the back that if the police officers are working, they'd go there, there'd be tables, outdoor education areas. There's a whole bunch of ideas. We've got to figure out how it all fits in there. But for me, it wasn't about filling the space. It was making the space something unique and special to the town. So that was, I felt like I liked Dan Hart's idea about the non-regulation basketball courts. There was a lot of really good ideas, so.
Right. With a couple of basketball, because right now McCarthy, the basketball court, it's that one. It's not very safe in the middle of the parking lot. And with the high school being redone with the 6 tennis courts with lights from the football stadium, we thought pickleball's really taking off. Basketball's really popular. So those were the main 3 things. And one of the things we realized, since we don't have a rec department, that we couldn't really turn tennis courts into pickleball courts because there'd be nobody to take care of the portable nets. So we were looking at permanent tennis courts and like 3 or 4 permanent pickleball courts, all in the same area. Because if you go up by Freeman Lake, up the bay, they have the new tennis court and the new separate pickleball court. And they're really nice. And because to be honest, down the road, the town has to be looking at South Row, with those tennis courts, because they're starting to crack now.
Bad shape.
So, and as a mediocre tennis player, it just.
The irony is, we got an email today about pickleball courts.
Right.
Yes.
And I think the mistake with pickleball is people think it's, don't look over here, but an old person sport. But there are 3 professional pickleball leagues now, and it's really taking off, and it could be a workout.
I wanted to say, you're not a mediocre tennis player. It's that Al Thomas is a fantastic.
Yeah, he is. Al is just incredible.
Al's a really good tennis player.
That's why I always partner with him over the
That's smart. Thank you for that. Thank you.
That gives us groundwork to work from. And like I said, next step is really getting that architect on board, because that's above anyone in the room to kind of put the designs together and take a look at the pitches and all that stuff and come back with some designs for us. And I think that group is very good. I think the group members want to get back together again when we get to that stage, so that'll be forthcoming.
And has this been shared with the select board also?
It is not, so actually, no, it only got shared with the members of the committee, and then you, because that was actually one of the charges, was to send it over to the select board, so.
Yes.
How would you like to handle that?
I think it's, I think I wanted these guys to see it first because they had, spent so much time and energy in putting this all together. I think now that we've had a chance to take a look at it and talked about it, I think, we've done our part, and it's time to move it over to the town manager and the select board. And as our recommendations.
Why don't I, Virginia emails once in a while as the liaison. Why don't I email her a copy of the report and just indicate that we've discussed it tonight and would like them to share with the select board and consider possible action. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Dennis, for that. I forgot. The last 2 items this evening are just the annual report from Valley Collaborative and then the winter newsletter from Valley Collaborative. As you know, Valley is our collaborative. We're a member district of Valley, and we have certain obligations as far as like appointing representative to the board. You appoint me to that board annually. They have a duty to share their annual report with all the stakeholders. So that's before you this evening. And then we always get a kick out of their newsletter too. So I just put that in the packet. So these 2 items will just be a report of progress, just so that it is recorded in the minutes that we received the reports.
Or something, I thought you had said that you wanted to mention something from the newsletter?
Oh, this is one of our former
One
staff
of our-
members is highlighted in there.
Yeah.
And former student, Eli.
Eli Marcus, who worked at the schools, Chelmsford High for quite a while.
Yeah, he was he went to the high school, and then he was a Parker, and then he worked at the,
Now he's a teacher over there, so.
he's a teacher over there.
Excellent.
Great guy, he really is.
All right, does anybody have any questions or anything that we need to talk about with regards to this report?
Great program, biased,
It
but
is.
it's a very good program.
It is a great
You
program.
guys know better than I do, but everybody loves it that I talk to.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on, do we have any liaison reports? Go ahead, Maria.
I do. You guys can go ahead. It's
No,
okay.
just go
Mine's
on.
like
We'll
2
go around the
seconds.
hall.
Go ahead, John.
Go ahead.
All right, Maria.
Okay.
Maria.
So
Okay.
I'm going to start with mine, okay?
Okay, sure.
So our wellness committee met. This year, it's about really implementation. There are two goals for the year. One is to try to do something at the elementary level in terms of wellness education. And the committee was able to report that actually quite a bit has been done. And we want to thank Mr. Romilo and Principal Gilbert at the South Row for allowing really a modeling type of program to happen there, where they have been able to use their building time, where they bring all the students together to do some programming, which has been quite impactful. And let's see if we can bring that to other elementary schools in the future. They have one more set to go at this half of the year. And really great thanks to them. The second initiative and that's with Katie Sims. She's leading that part. And then Ms. Quinn is working with us here, Stephanie, the other part of the committee, and that's about staff wellness. And we wanted to first survey the staff to see what they would like to see implemented in the schools that would improve their wellness. And the second thing, for example, we came up with ideas like maybe they'd like to see a field day for staff, or they would want more things in their lounges, or things like that for staff wellness. And so that's being worked on right now as well. It's a really nice committee, a good group of people, and working hard. The second is that I did attend the McCarthy PTO meeting. Their rock and roll bingo is coming up on March 24th. This is a really hard-working group of people at McCarthy, and kudos to them. They had a wonderful book fair that brought in $6,800 in sales and $1,300 net that they were able to get books for the school and the students. They're going to have a Roller Kingdom night in March, and they're targeting the entire school for that. And they have their 7th grade blacklight dance, which will be now. The other thing is that they talked about getting together with Parker in order to talk about when the school next year and how the PTOs would be organized within the schools, and that's one of their goals going forward here. Another one is LPAC, and the only thing that I have for LPAC is an announcement that they are going to have the Office of Student and Family Support is planning a workshop. It is fully in Spanish. It is for the LPAC leaders who want to be part of the organization. And it is on Wednesday, and Kelly is going to send it out to all the parents. She usually does that when they send out announcements. So people should take advantage of that if they can, because he talks a lot about how to deal with LPAC.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say that Byam and Parker PTO meetings are tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Thank you.
The high school PTO met last evening. They talked about the successful grab and go they had for the faculty. They're thankful for the superintendent for his support. They're also planning another event in March for the staff. And a lot of the meeting was spent on the preparation for the after-prom breakfast. It's so well organized, and it's amazing how people who were there took on all the different roles. And what had been done last year, at the last minute, they're using a lot of that information, and they're turning that around. They also got myself and Principal Murray to help them stuff and fold and stuff envelopes so we could get all the requests out. So my shoulder's a little bad from folding, but I think I'll be all right. And then the Boosters Club met. The Boosters Club has two big fundraisers coming up. Their St. Patrick's Day party on March 11th at the establishment. And they're also, at Easter, they sell Easter tulips that you can order and they will deliver. Those aren't up online yet, but just if you go to the Boosters Club website, when it becomes active, you'll be able to order through there. They also, hopefully, March 1st, they'll have live their scholarship applications, and they give This year, they're playing 10 $1,000 scholarships. And Boosters Club, they do, as Dennis knows, he had been liaison before me, they do incredible work. Not only do they do the scholarships, but when a team is going to a tournament so that parents don't have to pay, they'll come up with some money to support them. But they also expect the athletes to do their part. Like if they help out a team, they expect the athletes to help out at the veterans dinner or help out at the snack bar. So it's a really good community, effort, and it allows the athletes to be part of it. And they do a really, really nice job, and they're an enthusiastic group, and they're a fun group to work with. So check out their website. All that information will be the CHS Sports Boosters website.
Center School met, I think, the night after our last meeting. They're currently selling tickets for their annual Taste of Chelmsford raffle. So this used to be an in-person event, and they brought in all the restaurants, but with COVID, kind of took a hit there. And so they went to a raffle type of format where they get gift cards from restaurants and they'll sell them to people. So the $25 ticket, they're on sale now. You can find them on the Facebook. They are going to have their science fair on March 16th, so I think everybody got an email if anybody's interested in judging. They'd love to have you. They're also going to participate, they're going to bring back the Chelmsford Read-In, I believe, this year. Haven't had that for a couple of years now with COVID, so they're going to be participating in that, and I think that's also in March, I think the week of March 13th. And then they're going to do another recycling day on May 13th along with McCarthy. Last time in the fall was good, but they had some competition from other groups. In the spring, they should be on their own, so they should be the one place to bring all your stuff you want to get rid of. So.
All right, thank you. So I met with the South Road PTO last night, and like all the PTOs in town, they always impress me with how much they have going on and all the things that they do to support the schools. So the community read-in, I think that you were referencing, is from March 13th to the 17th, and they're looking for readers, if anybody has any time. They'll also be holding a book fair during that week as well. One of the things that they have going on is they're beginning a collection for crayons, like broken crayons or used markers and whatnot. And they're going to sponsor, boxing those up and mailing them to a recycling company as part of their Earth Day contribution to.
Make one big brown one, is that what they do?
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do, but
Big brown
I thought
crayon.
it was actually kind of cool, so that, you end up, especially at the elementary school, with a lot of broken
Yeah.
pieces of crayons, and I think this is just a terrific thing, and one of the parents brought this forward, and the PTO decided to support it, so I think it's terrific. And they will also be having their science fair on February 28th, and unfortunately, I believe we have a meeting that night, so we will not be able to judge, so. But if you know of anybody that might be interested in being a judge, let me know, and I can put them in contact with Principal Gilbert. So, and that's everything for South Row. Does anybody have anything else? I do not believe that we have, excuse me, I apologize. Before we get to public comments, is there any action items or new items that people would like to see for future agendas? Okay. Then we have nobody for our second public input session. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you very much, everybody.